So I should say this is an ongoing situation. So the information I'll be talking about here is simply what's been reported already. Yesterday, a 66-year-old man, Sergei Skripal, and a young woman, some sources are saying his daughter, but that's, again, a lot of this information is not very clear at the moment, collapsed in a shopping centre in Salisbury, Wiltshire, the Maltings shopping centre. Now, photos emerged from the scene showing personnel in protective clothing, which would indicate that a radioactive substance was involved. Apparently, there was no signs of physical injury. Now, Mr. Skripal is in critical condition. I'm not sure about the young woman. Um, but certainly, this is bringing back memories of the Alexander Litvinenko case. And that's because Sergei Skripal is a Russian national. And I don't know if he has British citizenship now, but he was a Russian national. And basically, up until 1999, he'd been working for the Russian military intelligence, GRU. In 2006, he was arrested on an allegation of being a double agent working for MI6, and he was sentenced to a penal colony. But in 2010, along with three other men, he was exchanged as part of a Cold War style exchange that took place at Vienna airports. The Americans, in return, handed over several Russian spies, including the famous Anna Chapman. So Mr. Skripov and another man settled in the UK. And the other man is Igor Sutyagin. Igor Sutyagin. Um, excuse me, Sergei Skripal. Just trying to get my pronunciations correct on this. So this is not being treated as an anti-terrorism incident, but of course there is immediate question marks if this is espionage breach, an espionage situation. There has been numerous incidents since the Litvinenko case, and I'm just going to read out a few of them here, as quoted by the London Times. 2014, Scott Young, a multimillionaire who had close ties to several wealthy Russians and helped to launder cash for the exiled oligarch Boris Berezovsky. He was found impaled by railing outside his penthouse in Marylebone, despite his threats to a former girlfriend that he would jump a corner road. There was not enough evidence to conclude that he had intended suicide. Boris Berezovsky, the billionaire and a critic and rival of Vladimir Putin, was found hanged in his British residence. I believe it was in the countryside, I'm not sure where. 2013. 2012, German Gorbachev survived despite being shot by a submachine gun several times on the Isle of Dogs, and he was said to have evidence relevant to an attempted murder of one Alexander Antonov, a Russian billionaire. 2012, Alexander Perepilchiny was about to blow the whistle on wealthy associates of Vladimir Putin when he died of a heart attack whilst out jogging in Surrey. Traces of a chemical linked to Southeast Asian plant, Gelsemium elegans, known to cause cardiac arrests, was found in his stomach. And that man who settled in Britain along um, with Sergei Skripal, Igor, I'm just trying to get my names right here, Igor Sudyagin, apparently has said that he received an email saying that soon your time is up. But he has put on a brave face and said he's not concerned for his safety. The widow of Alexander Litvinenko was in no doubt that this was the Russian state, and she has said that the British authorities were not tough enough with Moscow after what happened to her husband. At the time, the inquiry found that it most likely was on the orders of Vladimir Putin, although that wasn't conclusive. And there were sanctions against high-profile Russian businessmen and other associates of Putin, although Mrs. Litvinenko has alleged they don't go far enough, and she might have a point. maybe we should take a much tougher line, and I'll come to that in a minute. Um, Now, I caught a glimpse of how Russia. Well, first of all, not Boris Yeltsin, Boris Johnson has been taking a hard line on this, and he has been. I missed his speech in Parliament, but it's being reported that he is taking a hard line. However, apparently, no official complaints have so far been made to the Russian embassy in London. But uh, Mr. Skripal passes away, or even if he's seriously, um, if his health is seriously compromised, then this could really escalate. Now, I caught a glimpse of RT's coverage of this, and they had George Galloway on as their expert, and I don't know whether to laugh or cry. Them using George Galloway of all people as their expert. It's not surprising, but anyway, Galloway opined that why would Putin do this? And I've heard others say that. Why would Putin do that with an election coming up? Would it not be bad for him domestically? I would ask the reverse question, why would he not do it? I mean, think about it. There has been rising protests in Russia. Alexei Navalny has been arrested and attacked several times now, who's one of Putin's most formidable critics. Clearly, this election isn't going to be free or fair. Putin's basically guaranteed to win. No doubt he'll get 90% at least of the air coverage. So why wouldn't a convenient distraction like this be good for Putin? They also quote the World Cup coming up later in the year. Again, with all the focus on Russian doping, a convenient distraction would be good because it means Putin can tap into his power base. He can tap into the nationalist rhetoric because he will say, oh, look, the British are trying to stitch me up. They're trying to destabilize Russia. They're trying to, you cannot trust these Western media lies. And he will play to his base. And that is already working if you look at the sort of narrative the Russia Today is spinning out. They are already reading the script. For all their conspiracy theories about mainstream media. And by the way, at this point, I will say those who talk about mainstream media, fair enough. But do not think for a second that when you are quoting Russia Today to attack mainstream media, that you are in any way being independent-minded. Russia Today is not any more independent than CNN or the BBC. Russia Today has proven time and time again it is nothing more than a mouthpiece for the Kremlin. Now, like you say, they had Galloway on. They also had Mary Dejevsky. Mary Dejevsky is a columnist who has a track record of speaking favourably of Putin. I've seen her articles. She's written for The Independent, and she's accused the British government of being too quick to judge Putin. As far as I'm concerned, she has shown on a number of occasions that she is prepared to be a Putin apologist. And, it'll be interesting if Alex Salmond takes a line on this. I say interesting. Alex Salmond is, of course, a former leader of the SNP. He has his own show now on Russia Today. Well, Russia Today's coverage of the Scottish referendum was absolutely in favour of the Scottish nationalists. They say, oh, the BBC wasn't fair to them, so no wonder they love RT. You just have to look at RT and the Alex Salmond show to see the number of Scottish nationalists that flock there, because it suits their agenda. I mean, think about it. Russia Today wants the breakup of the United Kingdom. There's no question about that. They have been pushing an anti-Western narrative as long as they have existed, and it's only exacerbated over time. So they want destabilization of the West. So they will present the British government in the most cynical, negative light they possibly can. And they will present those poor, noble Scottish nationalists as the victims. They do the same thing with the Spanish situation and with domestic protests in the United States. Russia Today will always, always, always report the Western powers in a negative light because they want nothing more than the destabilization of the West. So if you, for example, are somebody who hates the European Union, That's fine. I understand your skepticism, but be very, very careful that you don't become a useful idiot for Russia Today. And I make no apology for using that loaded term. I would even suggest another loaded term, traitor. There, I said it. That is not something I say lightly. But let's just imagine we're in 2018. Let's imagine this was sometime between 1947 and 1991, i.e., the proper Cold War. How else would you define a British national who works for the propaganda outlet, call it a news network if you will, but it is a Russian nationalistic outlet? It's a branch of the Russian Foreign Ministry. How else can you describe a British national who works for that or panders to it? I have to say, my stomach churns when I see British nationals as anchor people on Russia Today. And when I see British MPs pandering to it, even if they think they're being neutral, simply by appearing on Russia Today, they're giving it legitimacy. And it isn't just the left, there's been a few conservatives who've done it. So I really think that we need to start getting more assertive with this and start really taking a hard line. And you know, the interesting thing is, what angers me more is not necessarily Russia. As much as I have contempt for the Putin regime, as much as I have contempt for their illegal annexation of Crimea and the fact they invaded a sovereign European nation, Ukraine, what they've done in Georgia, the brutal campaign in Syria, their lies on Syria, their propping up of the Assad regime, and the repression within Russia, all of that actually, in a way, angers me less than what those British nationals do who go to Russia and who pander to Russia Today. I frankly find that sickening. And to regular people who think RT is some sort of purveyor of truth. Look, if you dislike BBC, CNN, fine. I understand a lot of that criticism. But if you are pandering to Russia Today, you just wake up. Wake up. Look at their track record. There is a reason why some of RT's own anchors have quit on air. Russia Today is guided by an ultranationalistic principle. And that's what they do. That's what they are. That is what their narrative is. So my battery is running low. I'm going to have to round this up. But it'll be interesting to see how this pans out. Of course, Putin's going to deny it. And I'm not going to say he definitely ordered this, because we don't know 100%. But in all likelihood, it seems, put two and two together here. This guy is a former Russian citizen, a former Russian intelligence officer. He's now been poisoned on British soil. It's just common sense that there is very likely to be a link there, especially when his colleague has received a threatening email. So it'll be interesting to see how this pans out. I believe we need to take a much harder line with those British citizens that pander to the Putin regime. Let's start getting serious here, because Russia is not messing around. Let's start really, really taking this seriously. I would say, for example, let's seriously consider blocking RT from promoting pro-Kremlin propaganda in the United Kingdom. Let's take the gloves off. RT is not a neutral source. It's, as far as I'm concerned, part of the Russian government. Let's stop playing games. Let's get serious. Let's get tough. And let's start defending this country.